Welcome back to Buffalo Plus. Mike Catalana, Jenna Cottrell, Dan Fates joining us as well as always. All right, NFL free agency. It starts this upcoming week. We know the Bills re-signing John Feliciano, Mike, but what moves do you expect ahead for Buffalo?
Well, first of all, I just want to announce Brandon Beane has signed Buffalo Plus, re-signed us. We're all back again.
Yeah.
I mean, I took a pay cut. I restructured my deal.
I'm not taking a pay cut.
I restructured just like everybody else in the Bills.
No, I mean, look, he's done the job of running it back. I joked saying that, the players all said, we got to run it back. And all of us in the media were like, you can't run it back. That's not the way the NFL works. And Brandon Beane's like, yeah, hey, come on, we're going to run it back. Let's have everybody come back. And he basically has done that with the core guys and getting Feliciano done, obviously the offensive line with he and Williams. And then, Matt Milano, which again, I think was a surprise to a lot of people to get that deal done. So Jenna, going into free agency, no big holes for this team. The question is, what do they really want to address? Are they going to just fill in spots, or is the plan to target a guy in free agency, whether that be a defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, whatever it is? Are they going for that guy? Or are they just looking to fill in some more holes in free agency?
Well, Dan, what do you think about that? Because I feel like that is the point where we're like, how many moves more do you expect?
Right. I don't expect that many more moves. In all honesty, I think what Mike's kind of talking about, I think it is a couple of role players, unless people continue to restructure and take reductions in their salary. I wrote an article on BuffaloPlus.com that's up right now. And just the fact that how many things have gone right for the Bills this offseason. And while some teams are cutting salaries left and right, players hitting the market, this was literally, you hate to say like the perfect time for a pandemic to hit and affect the salary cap of a team.
Yeah, you don't say that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. That'd be very immature and, to say that. But it's benefited the Bills in the sense that the market has been flooded with free agents, and a lot of these guys, even though they're agents, Mike, I don't know if you know this, they can't talk right now to other teams. They have been feeling out there and kind of getting a sense. And what I think that a lot of players are realizing is that there's not a ton of money out there. That we talked about how Matt Milano had earned his right to go to free agency and that he was supposed to get his money. I don't think teams are out there spending money. And Diana Orsini had a report too about a wide receiver that she had talked to that said, I just want a 1-year deal. Like, I feel like more than ever, teams are going to be very cheap because of the reduction in the salary cap. It's benefited the Bills because players are, I think, where we had talked about before going, hey, I got to get my money. Like, yeah, Buffalo's great, but it's my turn to make money. And I think players have kind of went like, oh, there's not that much money out there. Yeah, I'll just stay here. Like, I got a sweet setup here. I don't really want to move and things like that. Yeah. Taking 2-year deals or 3-year deals that are really probably 2-year deals that can be voided after 2 years. Things like that. So, Mike, I know we talked about it when the Bills had re-signed Matt Milano, what their contract could look like. I think this is kind of what we're seeing around the NFL this year for once, is that they look like a lot of NBA deals where they're going to take the short-term money now and get the big money later when the salary cap goes back up.
Hey, Jenna, the one thing I will say is while it's exciting because the Bills were a really good team last year and they're so close, and to bring back all the guys that had played well, and that's great. But they still have some issues. And I look at this team and say, the offensive line is basically coming back, okay? And there were some issues on the O-line last year. And the defensive line is coming back. And there were some issues on the defensive line last year. And they have to address that second corner unless you believe Dane Jackson is going to be the guy to step up in that spot. Or, maybe they just kind of piece it together again. Or they do it in the draft, whatever it is. So while you look at that, and everybody, rightfully so, is happy because these guys are good football players that would have played well in other cities. Here's what they need. They need A.J. Epinesa to be really good this year. They need Ed Oliver to take that step up this coming year. They need one of the running backs to say, I'm the guy, and I'm going to take a step up this year. And they got to bring back Isaiah McKenzie. He's my guy. I don't want to see him go anywhere else. He's the one guy I wanted to see come back.
I could see them making a play to bring him back. I feel like the jet sweep has to live on in Brian Daboll's playbook. Right, Dan?
Well, we talked about how they filled kind of a lot of these, bringing back the key holes. Yeah, the defensive line is still an issue, but Mike, you talked about defensive tackle. I don't know if you know this. The sarcasm is flowing right now on a Sunday, but Star Latulele is coming back. I don't know if you knew about that. And so, there are, moves that Beane is making without really even making a move. And so I do understand where there's that little bit of that fear, Mike. You make a good point of, hey, just run it back as if they were all pros on the offensive line. That wasn't the case. And Mike talks about the flaws that they had. One of those flaws was running the football. They weren't very successful at it. And that could have been a part, Quentin Spain wasn't, they had moved on from Quentin Spain. There was a lot of shuffling at times with Mitch Morse coming in and out where the continuity can kind of set that straight. But I think it frees them up more in the draft to kind of go best player available. That again, they're not coming in there with a glaring hole, Jenna, of we need to fill this guy, and this guy needs to come in right away, and he needs to play 75% of the snaps. They don't have that going into the draft.
No, which is a good place to be in. But like you said, I feel like this is the time of year too where you do hear general managers say, look, we're drafting for best player available. But I think at the same point, you're drafting for a position that maybe is not of absolute need, but you're going to look towards a position where you need to have someone coming in. Like we saw even last year when, the Bills went after Gabriel Davis and drafted him as well as Isaiah Hodgins, like two guys that you knew you were nearing the point of that being a need. So that's why it does open them up. But I mean, like you said, you talked about Diana Rossini, how she was talking to a wide receiver. The market right now is flooded. And because of that situation, like the Bills have Brandon Beane has such an opportunity because I feel like you can get some players in that maybe you wouldn't expect to have, because I feel like a lot of teams are not paying the same. And at the same point, like, Mike, I feel like they've addressed Milano and Daryl Williams and, John Feliciano is coming back. What do they do at pass rush? Because that is something that we have talked about all offseason, and that's someplace we know that they need to get better at.
It's usually a combination of things, right? It's Star Latulele helping them more on the inside, Ed Oliver getting better on that inside pass rush, and a guy like Epinesa, who we saw flashes with him last year as a young guy. Like, I think he could still be really good. I shouldn't say could still be. Of course, he's a young player coming back, but I think you could see that. But I will say this, they go into free agency now still with a need at tight end, still with a need at defensive line, still with a need at linebacker. Like, it depends on what they're looking at. I know they brought Milano back, but I still think they're looking for at least anybody. So, yes, depth and somebody that can be a pass rusher. And then there's the other parts they got to fill in, in terms of special teams, Tyler Matakevich. And then you've got guys like, the punter, like Corey Bjorquez. I mean, is he back? Like, these are things they can take care of after they get themselves down to the cap on Wednesday. But they still have work to do. I mean, as exciting as it is, and it's been so long since I've seen a Bills team where the fans are so excited about bringing the same guys back. Because for many years, they didn't even want the guys they had, let alone bringing them back. And now here they are going, run it back. Yep. And I will say this. I sometimes set aside, guys want the money, and that is true. But, man, you listen to Matt Milano when he talked about what brought him back. And look, they're also paying him a lot of money. So, he's making money. But that atmosphere and that what doesn't hurt in the place, it's hard to create that in a pro locker room. And they've done it. So credit to Beane, McDermott, the whole thing. Like, they have done that. Now they got to do that and add the right pieces to go with it.
That was kind of the other turning point in the article that I wrote, was just talking about, it was a perfect storm. Jenny, you talked about the supply of free agents that had been released from teams is higher than the demand of teams wanting to spend money. It's a perfect situation where it's like the housing market right now. You want to have a house to sell because they're going so fast. But, if you're buying a house, it's kind of tough. So you're picking and choosing that. But it also doesn't hurt to have Josh Allen, an MVP caliber quarterback. It doesn't hurt to be 13-3, coming off an AFC Championship appearance, and having a GM and a head coach and a culture that has been created in Buffalo. Like Micah Hyde said, that now people are like, Buffalo's, it's different now. Like, all of these things is a perfect combination. But I don't know if there's still one more move left to be made, a big splash move, Mike, whether it's a Jonnu Smith, whether it's a Carl Lawson that everybody wants. I don't know how you do it, whether you do it just on straight It's a backloaded deal, kind of like Milano's. If you're able to backload it the first few years, maybe it's a big salary cap hit. And then again, I don't think these players and these agents aren't dumb to know, like, hey, if my first 2 years of my contract are pretty low, I'm probably going to get released at that point by teams. I can see the writing on the wall.
Right.
And then I'm okay with that because I'm going to go get another big contract in 2 years when the cap's up too. So, like, while it's benefiting teams, the players are also looking one step ahead and going, yeah, I'm looking at 2023 hitting the market again. And if I perform well in Buffalo and play in big playoff games and I'm playing in prime time, this could benefit me too.
It also is interesting, Jenna. I was thinking of Shaq Lawson today when he got traded to Houston.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who was on the open market, a guy I think the Bills liked, but didn't like enough that they didn't think they could replace him in the lineup. And he's a good football player.
Yeah.
And he goes to Miami, so he gets paid. And you think about it, Miami spends the money on the cap hit with the signing bonus, brings him in. It's a decent year, and then boom, you're gone. You're going to Houston. So,
woof.
Yeah, right? I mean, nobody wants to go to Houston right now. Yeah. And I think that's almost like a little – I shouldn't say that because the Bills could do the same thing to a player, right? I mean, they just did it with John Brown after 2 years, and then he's gone. But it is a little like – in this case, when Beane is making these moves with his own guys, he's structuring these contracts with a thought, to Dan's point. Does he have a big move out there? Is it to go for the tight end? Is it out there? Because he's looking at the way he's structured these deals. He's not getting himself caught up in negotiating with 3 other teams. He knows, look, I'm sure they wanted John Feliciano back. And if it did not happen, they would have had a plan B, right? Just like chasing a free agent from another team. But he wanted to come back. They weren't, in a general sense, they're competing with the other teams, but it's not in a specific one where they're coming back and forth.
But not as much this year, more than ever.
You're right.
There's not 4 to 5 teams all getting in a bidding war. It may be 2 or 3.
There's so many players.
And that's where fans always want to say, why wouldn't you want to stay? And this is where the fans are a little bit right. When it gets to just 2 teams, 3 teams, and the money's not that much of a difference, the players are going to lean to winning culture where they've been.
And this is why I'm saying is if you're Beane, in these circumstances, he can look at the deal, structure the deal, even, for the money. And obviously there's some back and forth, but in a way that allows him that flexibility, to Dan's point, to make a play at a Jonnu Smith or make a play at a Lawson, because he's saying to himself, this is how I was able to structure that deal. You get into the open market with that player, it's harder to manipulate your cap when it's the Wild West, everybody's talking, money starts flying, another free agent's gone, and you're like, all right, what do we do? And they don't panic, but it does change the dynamic. The clock was ticking, but look at the way they did it. Down this last week, there is a deadline, and boom, 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 they knock off the deal. So very impressive. I believe it left them some flexibility. I don't think they're going to be crazy with money, but I do think there is a big move out there for them. And Beane's the kind of guy that can figure it out based on the deals he's already made.
Yeah, that was a point that I wanted to get to, because at the end of the season press conference, I know we heard Brandon Beane say, there's not going to be a blockbuster move. This offseason is so different. And by building in that flexibility, then restructuring guys like Mitch Morris, Vernon Butler, players like that. Like, Dan, do you think that there might still be a big splash? Because I personally do. I'm not sure at what position. I would say probably pass rush, but I feel like we could see something, because I think things have probably gone, at least in my opinion, better than I was expecting. I thought Milano was going to be gone. I didn't know if Feliciano would be back. Like, I didn't know. I thought Daryl Williams would be gone, and they would have to be figuring out how to plug in those pieces. But they already have those pieces back, so that's why I'm like, maybe there's more left on the board.
And I think GMs have gotten so much more creative this offseason with the way they're doing deals, with the way that every team is strapped for cash. It's not just one team. It's every team. Unless you're Jacksonville, I think in Miami's got money to spend.
New England has money. That's mainly because they don't have good players.
Mainly that. Yeah, but that's where, talk about, is there another move? Maybe just because of the way that contracts are. Like, in a normal year, I wouldn't say the Bills had the space or the leverage to land a free agent pass rusher.
Yeah.
But this year, if Carl Lawson wants to take a big signing bonus, get 20, 15, 16, 17 million in signing bonuses, take $5 million a year his first 2 years, and then understand like, hey, we'll backload the contract. We'll see what the cap hit is. Beane will deal with. That's a problem for future Brandon Beane, but like present Brandon Beane would be like, yeah, we'll take this guy now because again, we've talked about it. This is the Bills' window. So will a free agent do that? I would lean more towards, I saw an article that it was through the Associated Press. It's part of the article that I wrote on Buffalo Plus that the agents believe that the big money free agents will still get their money.
Yeah.
That there's still enough for those guys, like the J.J. Watts. There's plenty of money for him, but it's the middle of the road guys. I don't know if Carl Lawson has priced himself out of the Bills. That's to be seen, but I wouldn't count it out, but I don't think it's likely. But I also, if you would have asked me a week ago, Jenna, said there would have been no way to bring back Feliciano, Milano, and Daryl Williams.
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. That's why, because of that, I'm like, so you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah. But again, I go back to this. They're bringing back the team. And I know it's just the start of free agency, but there are needs and there are upgrades they need. And they need, the other thing they need is, like I said, better play out of the guys they already have there that they have invested in. Like those, like I said, Oliver, Epinesa, the guys they've invested the high picks in. So, they drafted those guys. They're good football players, but if they take a step, that really changes the dynamic of the team because they go from good to great players. They've been able to do this. Basically, guys they brought in, like, they didn't get it out of the D-line last year. That was the one failure they've had where they brought guys in, they spent money, and they did not get what they needed. And that doesn't mean it's not going to happen this year. It doesn't mean Mario Addison's not going to have a good year and Butler's not going to have a good year. But those guys are, I would say they got their year here coming up, and then we'll see what happens. But, and the other thing you got to keep in mind, there's still going to be players cut around the league. Yeah. It's still happening up until next week and when teams make other moves. So sit back and pick your spots. I don't think moment one, and I say this, we've been wrong on everything Beane's done, but I don't think what time does it start on that Wednesday or even tomorrow, Monday, because when it's unofficial, I don't think Adam Schefter is tweeting the Bills with a massive deal for player X, Y, or Z. But this year, I guess you just don't know.
But Mike and Jenna, Rex Ryan was just ahead of his time, right, Mike?
Yeah, 5 years.
Winning the offseason.
Just missed it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of Rex. just missed it. All right, we talked about Isaiah McKenzie and Corey Bojorquez, but I feel like Tyler Matakevich is someone that's kind of in that position of, do the Bills want to bring him back? He played on special teams. He was is kind of a luxury guy to have around. Dan, do you think that he'll still have a place in Buffalo come the summer?
Sure. I just don't see why. Again, it's a good deal for Tyler. He's on a winning team. You try and bring him back at a reasonable price. It's not like special teamers are going to be making, big bucks this offseason. If everybody's strapped for cash, I can't imagine too many people getting a bidding war for Tyler Matakevich. So I think he'd be back. It's a good fit. Corey Bojorquez is in the same boat, Mike.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because of the cap and the way it was set up. They didn't tender those free agents, the restricted free agents, because then that's a cap hold on that. But, look, you're not going to pay. You're going to, like you just said, you're only going to pay so much for those guys. They may be even having conversations with the agents now saying, we're going to come back to you. Doesn't prevent the guy from getting a deal somewhere else and leaving. And look, you're a punter, special teams guy. You get paid, you got to take the money. It's not that much out there. Right, because you don't know. Right, you don't know what's going to be out there. But I can see that. It's going to be, I think in total, this whole free agency period is going to be very, very interesting around the league to see if there's some changes. Like New England spending money, which they don't normally do, right? Which would change the dynamic a lot. 31 other teams, again, have a chance on Cam Newton, and they passed on him.
Unbelievable.
So Cam is back, so he's out for another year. But it'll be interesting to see what the flow is of this free agency period. because and the 1-year deals are going to be prevalent, I think.
Well, obviously the Patriots re-signing Cam, they're going to make another move for quarterback.
Yeah.
Like they have to. Like that,
Yes.
that is something that
they do have Jarrett Stidham.
Hey, fun fact. Jarrett Stidham's on a wine tour just recently with Josh Allen and his girlfriend. How about that?
Oh, I did not know that. Wow, that's nice.
Jarrett Stidham. Oh, never mind. I was going to say something bad. I'm not going to say it.
I don't even know. Okay. Well, Mike, if you're a Bills fan, you've seen a lot of off seasons.
Yeah.
I didn't even mean that as like you're old, but
yeah, well, you get that in once a podcast anyhow.
It just came out like that. But if you're a Bills fan, seeing where Brandon Beane's at right now, how would you feel?
I would be very happy with what they've done. Again, they're not bringing back guys that aren't good football players. It's all about fitting them in and the ability to do it at deals that work for this franchise. And I think you have to have enough faith in Beane to know he knows how to manipulate the cap and knows how to make it work. And he knows the cap is going up. It's not like they got desperate, but it's also not like, I heard somebody on the call the other day was saying to Milano, like, you took a cap friendly deal and a team friendly deal. Like, he still got paid. I mean, he got paid, and he's a 5th round linebacker. He's never made all pro. He's not that guy, and he got paid. So he got a good deal, a fair deal that he might have been able to get a little bit more on the open market. What I'm saying is Beane isn't just like saying, I got to have these guys back, and he's overspending. He's giving them fair contracts that work for the team, and he still has some flexibility. So if I'm a Bills fan, I like the guys they're bringing back. They're all of the right age to bring back. They were all productive players last year. And I don't think it kills them from going out and filling some of these holes. And they're not, the days of signing one guy and thinking he's going to fix everything are tough. I say that a year after you make the deal to get Stephon Diggs. I know that was a
changes
trade,
the franchise.
But those guys in the right setting, that would end up being a tremendous move. So he did make the one big swipe that way to get him, but I'm happy. If I'm a Bills fan, I'm happy that I got these guys back.
And Jenna, Mike makes the best point there was that fair deals. There's not going to be too many mega deals going around, and the ones that are going around are not going to be on the Bills side because the Bills don't have the cap space to do it. But they did have enough money to get fair deals. They got Milano, Feliciano, and Williams all under what Spot Track's market value was expecting them to be. So they did get a little hometown discount because of the salary cap issues, because they were winning, because they have a culture, because of all the things are trending in the right direction. That helps for sure. But they're fair deals. Milano is getting his money, and they can worry about future Brandon Beane will have decisions to make, Jenna. But right now, current Brandon Beane is very happy.
And if I could just add to what Dan said there, fair deals is important. It's like winning trades. Yeah, it's great every once in a while when you really win the trade, but you don't want to be known as that guy, right? Because then people don't want to deal with you, and everybody gives you the credit, and you're that guy. Both teams should get something in the right deal. The Vikings trade is a perfect example. Like if you're the Vikings, you got that pick, you got Jefferson, like Stephon Diggs is awesome. Fair deals with your players. You don't want to be known around the league as the team that's undercutting or cutting. I think those players are pretty happy, and they did it all before they got into free agency. So it wasn't like, boy, there's nothing out here, and now I got to go crawling back to the Bills, because all of them would have gotten paid in free agency.
That's the point, because I know you bring up that it matters in the room, in the locker room, people pay attention to those deals. So what do you think that says to the Bills locker room about what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott believe in? Yeah,
that's a really good point too, because it's not like they took all that money and went out and gave it to somebody else. If they bring a guy in now, let's be honest, they've kind of taken care of the room.
Absolutely.
They've paid all the guys that need to get paid. You got Micah Hyde getting his deal done. You've got all these players that are core guys for this team that have gotten taken care of. Yes, we know they cut John Brown, who's, and a couple other guys took the cuts, but, they had pretty substantial contracts and they took those cuts. So they're fine. It's not like you just said, we're letting these guys walk and we're going out and giving the money to player A, B, or C. So when they do bring that guy in, it's not going to be a worry about money that they said, oh, great, you're going to pay this guy, but you wouldn't pay our own guys. So I think it's a good message.
And Jenna, we still have a Josh Allen extension to talk about at some point in the coming future. It could be tomorrow.
Well, I got asked that over this weekend of like, when do you think it's going to be? And I feel like you could make it. I mean, you can make it
yesterday.
Now you can make it later. You like Mike. I mean,
they
when?
Could, yeah, you're right. They could, because it depends on how they apply the money. The extension starts. It's the cap hits get spread out. I mean, like I said to you, as awful as the Wentz deal was with the Eagles, the biggest problem was the big hit on it started when they were already ready to get rid of him. Yeah. I mean, just kind of the way the deal went out, but it was spread out a little bit. So if they want to make a deal that pushes the cap hit back beyond, doesn't start, the big hit doesn't start this year, they can do it. Is that smart for Josh Allen? Yeah, probably. Honestly, it's like he's going to get a lot of money. He's going to get a lot. So I think he'll be pretty happy.
Yeah.
4 years, $165 million, something like that. And I think the Pagula should throw in the Sabres. I think that's a fair deal.
I don't think you want to burden him with that.
I don't think he wants that. I would want that.
I think that's the only way the Sabres can turn it around.
I don't.
Do you really want to do that to Josh Allen? You're like, here's
a headache.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all vlog to try and get another Sabres jab in, as I did last time where I said they're the Houston Texans of the NHL.
Hey, by the way, before we go, I did want to mention one other thing. I was really impressed by the Jordan Poyer message.
Yes.
For what he went through, being so upfront about it, being so open about it. The guy, and he did bounce back this year. Not bounce back. He played great this year.
Yeah.
And he deserves his money.
Career
but to
year,
be that honest and to talk about what he went through and what he sort of put his family through, kudos to him for doing that. There's a lot of people that suffer that way. And maybe because he's a public figure, people wouldn't think that that's the case, but it was the case for him. If people haven't seen it, he talked about his bout with alcoholism and he stopped drinking, and it was really something to read, the honesty from him. And I give him a lot of credit for that. So good for him. Yeah.
Honestly, I was shocked when I first saw it, because I mean, it goes to show that you don't know what type of battles people are going through behind closed doors. And I thought it was incredibly powerful. And I also thought it, like, I tweeted out being like, this is very personal. And I feel like you get to see in what side of a player when they share it, and like that hadn't really been shared before. So and also I thought it was the fact that he was like, my DMs are open if people have questions or comments or anything. So I thought the way he phrased it was unbelievable and inspiring. So that was really, it goes to show too, like we weren't in the locker room obviously this year, but like in years past, like you think everyone you just don't know. It's really interesting to see. But yeah.
And I'll be one that can put my hand up and say, my bad. I remember when Sean McDermott took over, and one of the first things he talks about doing and did at training camp was having these like campfire stories, and that they would all sit around and they would tell each other their message, and they would tell each other about where they've come from and some personal things about them. And I remember kind of mocking it and kind of being like, yeah, campfire stories doesn't win football games. Like, talent wins football games. That's why I remember saying, like, the New England Patriots didn't win because Tom Brady sat down with the rookies and told them about his, being a 6th round draft pick. Like, and I was dead wrong. That, like, this culture is real. And you started to see this and to have some openness from that. And you've seen it from Stephon Diggs and these guys that have come in that, have maybe weren't there from the beginning, but guys like Lorenzo Alexander and Kyle Williams and those guys that were really there and saw the dark days and to see the light of McDermott kind of bring in is very telling where this process continues to go.
Yeah. And I think what that does, I remember sort of in the beginning, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then talking to the players and them just going, it was great.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, not just like a guy, like all of them.
Yeah.
We're like, this was great. And it is great. And then the ability to have that in place in an off season like we just had, because that's what the Bills do. And now it's become, this is what the Bills do. And the players buy into it. And I think it was great. And I think that's part of the reason I think my guess would be that Poyer feels comfortable being that way in that room with those players. So I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it gets lost sometimes with all the news going on in the offseason, but good for him. And he still should be an All-Pro, and he's better than that linebacker that's playing for Seattle.
Well, that was part of it, Jenna. I don't know about you, but I saw the picture, and instantly I kind of scrolled by it. I was like, yeah, it's Jordan Poyer sitting on a Lamborghini. Like, sweet, man, I get it. And then you read the message, and Jenna, it's kind of tough to convey such a powerful message in an Instagram post, and that's exactly what Poyer was able to do.
Completely. Well, I stopped because I was like, that's a long message.
Yeah.
Because we don't usually hear that much about Poyer's personal life, which is fine. You know, everyone, I would be the same way. So when I saw that, I was like, wow. And then I was just blown away. And even just tweeting it out, like people were responding and people were talking about how, you know, how it helps them or how they're on that journey as well. And it was this is why people love sports. And this is why we love sports, is because it offers the opportunity for people to be inspired and to overcome obstacles, and just to know that, like, you know, at the end of the day, these famous professional athletes are going through things as well. They have their personal, you know, battles that they're dealing with, but, you know, they're battling them. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it is. It makes them as much different as they are than regular people, just by their physical skills and what they've done. When all that's not happening, they are people. And for him to do that publicly, I think was great. It's a shame that he had to go through it, but I'm glad he made it public for everybody. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, we will have plenty more because it's going to be a busy week. We already know that.
But tomorrow is just legal tampering. Like, they can't work out a deal, right?
No way.
They can't, right? Not until Wednesday.
What do you mean?
So I'm guessing there's not a single Adam Schefter tweet tomorrow about a deal being agreed to.
No,
or maybe like 20 of them. Yeah. Taysom Hill's going to get another extension.
All right, we'll have plenty more this week. Make sure to check out buffaloplus.com as well. Thanks for watching. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I am Jenna Cottrell. We will check in later this week.